Please save my son, and me from them, she said to Hell's Angels, unaware he knows everything midnight. Rain. A woman's shadow on the cracked road. She pressed a boy against her hip and knocked on a steel door marked with a red and white skull. The sign above read Hell's Angels, Knox chapter, please. Save my son and me from them, she whispered. Inside, a dozen engines slept under dripping rafters, and the man who opened that door already knew the names of the devils chasing her. Before we begin this story, tell me in the comments where in the world you're watching from, and if you love stories of courage, loyalty, and second chances. Subscribe to Biker's Hype and join a brotherhood that believes real angels wear leather. The storm over Stonebridge Vale wasn't gentle. It peeled across the sky like torn steel, lightning flashing through black pine. In the distance, the freight yard moaned with wind and ghosts. Inside the old rail depot turned clubhouse, Calder Knox, captain of the Knox chapter, wiped chain grease off his hands. Engines cooled. Coffee steamed. Rain hammered the roof like angry drums. Then, a knock. Soft but sharp enough to cut through the noise. Roar, the sergeant-at-arms, looked up. You expecting someone? Knox shook his head once. No. He opened the steel door, and there she stood, soaked to the bone, eyes wide, holding a small boy wrapped in a torn blanket. I'm Ava Renly, she said, voice trembling. This is Noah, please, someone's coming for us. A thunderclap split the night. Knox didn't shout orders. He didn't ask questions. He simply turned and called, Diesel, roar, help her. The boy coughed, deep and wet. Diesel was already moving, stethoscope still around his neck from the charity clinic earlier that day. He's burning up, Diesel murmured, checking his pulse. Get him near the stove. Warm fluids. Knox's leather jacket came off his shoulders, wrapping around the boy like armor. You're safe now, Knox said, and when Ava heard that, her knees almost gave out. As Diesel tended to Noah, Ava gripped the edge of the table. Her voice shook, but her eyes held. They said if I didn't pay, they'd take my boy. Work him off. Errands first. Then worse, Knox's jaw locked. He'd heard that tone before, desperation sharpened by dignity. Who? He asked. Voss Mercer, she whispered. He works for Harland Pike, out by the quarry. Knox didn't flinch. He'd been waiting for that name. A folder in his office held months of notes. Photos, plates, routes, whispers. He didn't show surprise. Only resolve. You did right coming here, he said. You're safe, and they won't touch you again. Rain battered the depot windows, but inside purpose gathered like fire. Knox spread a county map beneath a bare bulb. Grease pencil in hand, he marked the corridors. Pike's men sweep River Road at 2 and 4, he said. They park by the birch stand, kill lights, then walk the tree line to Kettle Bridge. Ava's hands trembled. How do you know that? Knox's eyes met hers, and steady, blue as stormlight. Because I've been waiting for them to make a mistake big enough to bury them. Diesel looked up from Noah. Kid's fever's dropping. He just needs rest, Knox nodded. Then we make sure he gets it. He folded the map. Roar talent, prep the van. Helmets on. No noise. No showboating. This ain't theater. It's protection. The angels moved like rain itself. Quiet, deliberate, unstoppable. Headlights ghosted across wet brick, then died. Boots splashed in puddles. Voices murmured. Knox stepped out alone, coat hanging heavy with rain. 3 figures slid from the dark. Voss Mercer grinned like a wolf. Evenin', Captain, he drawled. Heard you're running a daycare. Knox's voice was calm. You laid hands on a mother. You threatened a child. Mercer's grin thinned. That's business. Knox took 1 step closer. No, that's cowardice. Roar's silhouette filled the doorway behind him. Engines hummed low inside, ready but restrained. You think you know me? Mercer spat. Knox's reply was a whisper in the storm. I know the names of every man you hurt, and tonight I add yours to the end of the list. The rain applauded the silence that followed. Mercer sneered, gestured to his men, and backed into the dark. This ain't over. Knox's voice was steady. For you, it is. Inside, Ava sat by Noah, his breathing finally soft. Diesel handed Knox a bottle of antibiotics. This'll hold till morning, Knox nodded. He led Ava upstairs into an old dispatcher's loft, a cot, a kettle, and windows that watched every road. Our safe room, he said. Ava's eyes shimmered. You planned for families? Knox looked out the window, rain streaking the glass. We planned for the worst nights, she swallowed hard. Why are you helping us? He turned, voice quiet as thunder rolling off. Because someone once helped me when I didn't deserve it. And because your boy's not currency. The depot didn't sleep that night. Engines stayed warm. Boots stayed near. Ava sat awake watching her son dream under a biker's jacket. Below, Knox mapped the night with calm precision. Roar monitored cameras. Diesel checked med supplies. Fen and Talon watched the rain from their bikes, shadows under streetlight halos. The Brotherhood didn't talk about saving people. They just did it. Dawn finally came, silver and fragile. The freight train groaned past, shaking the windows. Knox poured 2 cups of coffee. Ava's hands shook when she took one. "What happens now?" she asked. Knox stared at the horizon, still gray with storm. "They'll circle back. Men like Pike don't forgive failure." Her voice lowered. "How do you know him?" Knox's eyes darkened. "We tangled over a kid last year. I've been collecting proof ever since." Ava held his gaze. "You've been waiting for him." He nodded once. "And now he's coming to me." Outside, thunder rolled again, but this time it sounded like engines. "Before you go, tell me in the comments, where in the world are you watching this from? And if this story moved you, like the video, share it, and subscribe to Bikers Hype. Because out here on the road, real angels ride steel, not wings. Stay loyal, stay human, and ride safe. The storm didn't leave Stonebridge Vale. It just went quiet enough to reload. Inside the old rail depot, the air smelled of coffee, oil, and rain-soaked leather. Outside, the clouds hung low and bruised, the kind of sky that meant unfinished business. And for Captain Calder Knox of the Hells Angels, business was about to get loud. Ava woke to the sound of rain ticking softly on the loft windows. Noah was still asleep, curled under Knox's heavy leather jacket. The air was warm now, smelled of pine smoke and diesel. She stood quietly, gazing out the window. Down below, Knox was already moving, checking tires, oiling chains, running his hand over a map pinned to the wall. He wasn't just a biker. He was a soldier with patience written in the lines of his face. Diesel appeared behind him with a clipboard. "Kid's temp is normal," he said. "Lungs clearing up." Knox nodded once, still scanning the map. "Good, keep him close. No one leaves till I say." Ava came halfway down the stairs. "You haven't slept," she said softly. Knox glanced up, half a smile. Neither did the storm. She hesitated. "You really think they'll come back?" He folded his arms. "They don't know how to quit. Men like Pike only understand 2 things, fear and failure. We're going to give them both." By noon, the rain had turned to mist, the kind that made everything feel like a held breath. The clubhouse gathered around the workbench. Maps, radios, and an old burner phone spread across the wood. Knox stood at the head. "All right, brothers." Pike's pride's bleeding. That makes him dangerous. He'll send Mercer back with more weight. We stay ready, but we don't hit first. Not till they step wrong. Roar cracked his knuckles. "Been waiting years for that order." Knox's tone cut through. "We don't burn what we protect. This ain't vengeance. It's rescue." Fen leaned forward, voice gravel. "You sure the law's gonna back us this time?" Knox's eyes narrowed. "Sheriff Briggs owes me more than one debt. He'll look the other way till it's clean." The men nodded. "Old loyalty, tested by time." "Diesel," Knox said. "You stay with Ava and Noah. You hear engines near the depot, you move them to the crawl space." "No arguments," Diesel nodded. "Got it." Knox turned back to the map. Roar, Talon, Fen were heading to the quarry road tonight. Time to see what Pike's been moving under cover. As the men prepped, Ava found herself near the old stove, staring into the flames. The fire hissed when rainwater from her hair hit the coals. Diesel poured her coffee. "You all right?" She laughed bitterly. "All right? You men talk like you're going to war, and you're calm about it." Diesel smiled faintly. "When you've seen enough storms, thunder stops scaring you." Ava looked toward Knox, the way he checked every bolt, every route. "He's done this before. Too many times," Diesel said. "But this time feels different." Ava sipped her coffee. "When I ran last night, I thought no one would answer that door." Diesel leaned back, arms folded. "That's the thing about this place. When the world slams the door, we open one." Dusk fell in streaks of violet and steel. The angels rolled their bikes out into the drizzle, engines rumbling like distant thunder. Knox pulled his gloves tight, helmet under his arm. Roar grinned from behind his visor. "Been too long since we rode for something that mattered." Knox's eyes were flint. "Every ride matters. Some just hit closer to home. Engines roared to life. The sound rolled through Stonebridge Vale like a promise. Ava stood in the doorway, clutching Noah close. Knox met her gaze across the yard. "Lock the upstairs door," he said. "And don't open it unless Diesel says my name." She nodded. "Be careful," he smiled, faint but real. "Always am." Then the angels thundered into the mist, taillights glowing red like embers vanishing into rain. The road to the quarry was slick with mud and memory. Knox led, headlights cutting narrow beams through fog. When they reached the ridge, he killed the engine, letting the others coast in silent. Below, half hidden by pine, stood a convoy of trucks and covered crates, men smoking, laughter echoing off rock. Roar muttered, "They're moving weapons." Knox nodded grimly. "Unregistered, likely from the Pike routes." He pulled a small camera from his vest, snapped photos quietly. Evidence first, retaliation second, then he froze. Down below among the crew stood Mercer, laughing, alive, unbruised. Roar whispered, "You want him breathing?" Knox's tone turned to gravel. For now, he leaned closer. "They move these crates to River Dock by dawn. If we can track that truck, we get Pike's network, all of it," Talon whispered, "and if they spot us?" Knox's eyes didn't blink. "Then they'll wish they hadn't." Back at the depot, Ava couldn't sleep. The storm had crept back, whispering at the windows. Noah dreamed beside her, small hand gripping the edge of the blanket. Diesel sat at the kitchen counter, radio in hand, waiting for a signal that didn't come. "You ever get used to waiting?" Ava asked softly. Diesel shook his head. "No, you just learn to breathe through it," she bit her lip. "Do you think they'll make it back?" He looked at her, honest. "They always do, but not always the same." Lightning flashed, and for a second Diesel thought he saw movement outside. A shadow near the fence line. He stood fast, hand on his sidearm. The shadow moved again, and slow, deliberate. "Stay upstairs," he whispered. But Ava didn't listen. She followed barefoot, the floorboards creaking under her steps. Diesel pushed open the side door, rain slicing the air. Nothing but darkness and wet gravel. Then a voice. "Low mocking, evening, Doc. Heard you were harboring runaways." Mercer. Diesel's jaw clenched. "You picked the wrong house." Mercer grinned, stepping out of shadow. "Funny. Pike said the same thing once." Before Diesel could answer, glass shattered. A back window. Two more men and Diesel fired once, hitting the wall near their boots. God's a warning. "Out now." But Mercer just smiled wider. "We ain't here for you," Ava screamed. Noah woke. And upstairs the world broke open. Out on the ridge, Knox's comm crackled. Diesel's voice cut with panic. "Mercer, depot, multiple in static." Knox didn't wait. "Mount up." "They're hitting home." Engines ignited like thunder erupting from the mountain. Rain flew sideways as the angels tore through the valley, taillights streaking like blood across the dark. Knox's voice roared over comms. "Fen, block the east road. Talon, stay high on the ridge." "Roar, with me." Roar grinned grimly. "Time to bring the storm." Back at the depot, Diesel was outnumbered but holding the line. Ava shielded Noah behind the furnace crawl space. Every noise was war. Every breath, borrowed. Then, the sound. Engines. The kind of roar that split heaven from hell. Mercer's eyes went wide. No. No, not now. The angels poured into the yard like a flood of thunder. Bikes screeched to a halt. Roar jumped off mid-slide, slamming Mercer against the wall. Knox walked through the rain, coat heavy, eyes calm as judgment. He didn't shout. He didn't threaten. He simply said, "You shouldn't have come back." Mercer spat blood. "Pike made me." Knox leaned close. "Then tell him. The storm just started." Before we close this chapter, drop a comment. Tell me where in the world you're watching this story from. And if this ride hit your heart, like, share, and subscribe to Biker's Hype, because these stories aren't just fiction. They're reminders that compassion can roar louder than cruelty, and sometimes thunder wears leather. The first fist hit the window like a drumbeat. Then the glass gave up the ghost and the storm walked in with boots. Inside the depot, a boy's breath hitched. A mother's heart braced, and Captain Knox stepped into the doorway, rain in his hair and judgment in his eyes. Tell us in the comments, where in the world are you watching this from? If you believe in courage with a backbone, subscribe to Biker's Hype, like the video, and share this with someone who needs hope tonight. Mercer's boys split like knives through cloth. Two peeling toward the stairs, one trying the side hall. Diesel planted his boots between the crawl space and the hall and raised his voice without raising the volume. Doorway's a bad place to die. The nearest thug flinched at the calm. The second one didn't, he lunged. Diesel pivoted, a clean clinic turn, shoulder to sternum, man to floorboards. The third caught a forearm to the throat from Roar, who arrived like a landslide with a smile that promised nothing good. Knox didn't shout. He walked. The yard hissed with rain. Engines idled like patient animals. He passed Mercer, who was staring at the puddle reflection of his own blood, and said almost gently, "You could have chosen to be better." Mercer laughed and coughed red. "Better doesn't pay." "Sometimes it pays the only thing that matters," Knox said. "Sleep," Roar obliged. The night exhaled upstairs. Ava knelt beside Noah. "Hands on mine," she whispered. He pressed his palms to hers and they breathed together until Fear found a smaller chair to sit in. Diesel checked the boy's pupils with a pen light, nodded. "You're a storm chaser, kid." Noah managed to grin. "I like thunder." "Good. It likes you." Out beyond the fence, through the thin trees and freight fog, a bigger sound was climbing the hill. Roar cocked his head. "That ain't Mercer's scrap." Knox stepped into the yard, rain needling his face. Headlights rose through the curtain, too high for bikes. Too slow for patrol, too confident for a delivery. "Pike," Knox said, like the name was a door he'd been waiting to open. The truck nosed in, grill blacked out, bed under tarp. A second rig followed, bikes fanned behind them, helmets down, mirrors dead. The gate chain rattled once and fell. Fenn's voice crackled in Knox's ear. "East road blocked. Talon on the tower. I got 4 more shadows by the birch stand." "Copy," Knox murmured. "No aggression unless they breach."
Cameras rolling.
"We don't lose our soul to win this fight." The lead truck braked hard. Harland Pike climbed down, a leather coat like a flag around his shoulders, a mouth used to owning rooms. He surveyed the scene, rain beating on his lashes, and smiled as if the weather worked for him. "Captain," he said, "you keep finding strays that owe me." "They don't owe you," Knox replied, hands open, nothing to hide but a lifetime's ledger. "And you brought too many men for a conversation." Pike's smile held. "Some truths need a crowd." Diesel ushered Ava and Noah to the safe corner of the loft. "Stay low. When you hear the engines roar all together, that's us. When you hear 3 sharp blips, that's me. If you hear nothing—" He stopped. Ava nodded. "I know. I've known nothing before." He squeezed her shoulder. "Not tonight." Downstairs, Fenn and Talon ghosted through shadows, marking angles, counting breath. Roar flexed his fingers, chain scar white. Knox took 1 step toward Pike, as if stepping into better light. "You forged a dead man's signature to put a living boy in debt," Knox said. "You don't get to use words like truth." Pike tilted his head. "A ledger is a ledger. The world runs on it. Even yours." Knox's eyes didn't blink. "Mine runs on oaths." Lightning stitched the clouds. For an instant, the yard was a photograph. Pike's jaw, Mercer's loose body, the angels still as statues, the truck's tarp shivering like a lie about to be caught. Pike spoke without looking back. "Bring it." The tarp peeled, crates, stenciled numbers. No markings that admitted guilt, just the blankness of a practiced crime. "Unregistered," Roar muttered. "Red River Steel." Knox didn't turn. "Sheriff Briggs will want to see that." Pike laughed, pure and clean. "Briggs wants to keep his town quiet." "Then you'll hate what happens next," Knox said. He tapped his comm once. Far off through rain, a siren answered like a promise kept. Pike moved first, not with fists, but with theater. He lifted both hands as if he were surrendering to an applauding crowd. His men spread, a fan of wet denim and iron. "You want to be the patron saint of lost causes?" Pike called. "You brought church to a knife fight." Knox's voice was window glass soft. "I brought witnesses." In the loft, Noah's small hand crept to the window ledge. He peeked over the sill, goggles from a charity ride still around his neck. Ava pulled him back gently, pressed a kiss into his hair. "Quiet thunder," she whispered. "We let them roar for us." Roar took 2 steps, put his back to Knox's, scanned angles. 3 by the gate, 2 near the loading dock, 1 on the office roof. "I don't like the roof." "Neither do I," Talon said in his ear. "Until now." A shadow slid over the roofline. A figure slipped and found themselves staring down the quiet circle of a flashlight, blinding and absolute. "Drop it." Talon said softly. Steel clanged. Rain cheered, Pike's chin lifted. Tricks. Patience, Knox replied. For a heartbeat, no one breathed. Then Mercer groaned and pushed to elbows, face smeared, pride thinner than rain. He spat. Boss! He met Pike's eyes, and for the first time, Mercer's bravado looked like a coat he couldn't lift. Pike smiled at Mercer as a man might at an old, tired dog. It's all right, Voss, some men are born to kneel. Mercer blinked. In that blink was 10 years of following the wrong map. Knox saw it. He stepped sideways, letting his words find merciful targets. You know he would sell your name for a minute of comfort. But you could still walk away tonight. Pike's voice lost sugar. You talk to my man again, I'll hang your jacket from this door like a trophy. Roar grinned without mirth. Try it. Thunder collapsed the distance. For all the talk of patience, violence arrived on a direct route. Pike's nearest thug lunged and met Fenn's elbow, a brutal lesson in trajectories. 2 more rushed the loading dock. Diesel came through the side door with a wrench and a surgeon's precision, ending arguments at the jawline. Pike himself stepped into Knox's space, chain in his hand like a tail of lightning. Saints fall hardest. Knox ducked the first swing. The chain kissed the doorframe, threw sparks like fireflies. On the second swing, Knox caught the links with his forearm, turned and anchored Pike into the truck's grill. Metal sang. Rain hissed on hot anger. Respect, Knox breathed. You don't even know its weight. Pike's head snapped forward. Knox's world turned into a white bell. The chain looped low. Pike yanked. Knox dropped to a knee. Roar moved, but a man from the dock caught him in a tackle, and the yard became moving parts and old ghosts. Ava held Noah tighter. Look at me, she said. Not at them. Noah's eyes brimmed. Are we safe? We are not alone. She meant it like a shield. Sirens fattened the night. The gate burst again, not with men, but with a badge that didn't wear fear like cologne. Sheriff Callan Briggs stepped out, rain folded into the brim of his hat. He didn't unholster. He looked. Pike's laugh thinned. You came to your choir practice. Briggs's eyes drifted to the truck bed. Practice is over. He nodded to a deputy. Cameras rolling. No one moves unless they want to have a worse morning than they planned. Pike smirked. You gonna cuff a charity crew and a few crates of tools? Briggs lifted a tarp flap with 2 fingers. Inside, metal slept like snakes. He exhaled, old and tired. Harland, I've been ignoring the itch at the back of my neck for too many seasons. Tonight it's a rash. He looked to Knox. There was history in the nod. You brought me evidence or a mess? Knox, breathing hard, wiped rain from his mouth. Both, Briggs almost smiled. Good, I get bored easy. He pointed with his chin. Hands where I can see 'em. Pike raised his hands, but his eyes flicked at the roof, the fence, the place his plans hide. For a second, Knox thought he'd run. The second broke. Pike didn't. He wasn't built for running. He was built to rot slowly, loudly. Mercer pushed himself fully upright, looked at Pike, then at Knox, then at his own empty hands. When he stood closer to Knox than to his old master. Pike noticed. Voss, Mercer swallowed. The word he needed had rust on it. Enough. The sky seemed to listen. Rain softened. Somewhere, a train horn mourned through distance like a benediction. Inside the depot office, Briggs spread photos, timestamps, and route notes across the desk. Diesel handed over a flash drive. Talon texted in 3 more angles. Fenn leaned in the doorway, dripping, a watchman carved from old timber. Pike stood between 2 deputies, cuffs neat on his wrists, arrogance sitting lopsided on his face. Conspiracy looks prettier on you than truth. Briggs ignored him, eyes on a single image, a blurred scrawl in a ledger, a name written twice and then crossed once. He tapped it. Ava Renly. He looked up. Forgery's a dull crime, Harland. Dull things cut slow. Pike rolled his eyes. You can't pin that to me. Briggs looked to Knox. Knox nodded. Audio. Deputy Callis took a cash jacket last winter. Pike's voice on the recording telling him to lose a file. Knox slid a small recorder across the desk. I kept it clean until it mattered. Briggs didn't touch the device. He stared at Knox for a breath that measured 15 years. You always were a patient sinner. Knox managed a small, tired smile. Learnt from the best. Briggs nodded to a deputy. Bag it, Pike snorted.
Think the county's going to risk my money over a widow with bad luck?
A voice answered from the doorway, soft but made of stone. She has a name, Ava said. Pike's eyes flicked, narrowing. Oh, the brave little Knox moved. So did Roar, so did the world. Briggs's hand was up before the air cooled. Enough, he said, and the word worked like a door slamming somewhere in the soul. No more theater. We do this in the light. He turned to Ava, gentling. Ma'am, your statement, then your son home to bed. Ava nodded, every nerve holding but not breaking. He forged my husband's signature. He told me my boy would pay, he said. The words trailed to a place no one should have to go. Diesel stepped to her side and didn't say a thing. Presence did the work. Briggs turned back to Pike. You're done for tonight. Maybe longer, he looked to Knox. You too. No hero speeches. Go sit with your people, Captain. It was not a request. Knox obeyed like a man who knows which orders keep worlds from burning. They sat in the depot's long room, with mugs that steamed and jackets that dripped and a silence that felt like the first safe breath after a choke. Noah slept, head on Ava's lap, one hand still inside Knox's jacket pocket as if it were a pocket of weather he liked. Fenn tuned a radio low to some old Springsteen track that made the rain sound like company. Roar grilled bread at the stove with more care than a man like him should have time for. Knox stood apart at the bay door, counting the taillights as the last of Pike's crew were hauled out, and when the count ended, he let his shoulders drop a little. Diesel came to stand beside him. You told me once we can't save everyone. Knox watched Ava tuck hair from her boy's forehead. We can save someone. Diesel nodded, the little smile that knows mercy when it sees it. That's enough to ruin a tyrant's sleep. Knox's phone buzzed. Briggs. A text. Truck traced to River Dock. Feds tomorrow. Quiet now. Knox typed back, copy, thank you. Then after a moment, for not forgetting who we were. 3 dots then, I never did. I just needed a night like this to admit it. Later, when the depot found its softer voice again, Ava walked to the bay door. Rain thinned to a glitter. The yard reflected the light like a shallow lake. You told me to trust the noise would be yours, she said. It was, Knox nodded. Noise can lie. Oaths don't. Her eyes shone in the bay light. I was afraid the world would never be quiet again. It won't, Knox said. But it can be kind. Noah stirred, half awake, voice small and hoarse. Mom, are they angels for real? Ava looked at Knox. What do we tell him? Knox crouched. We tell him angels are just people who don't run when the rain's loud. Noah smiled without opening his eyes. I like rain. Me too, little man, Knox said. It keeps secrets honest. Briggs returned to the doorway, hat in hand now. I'll be back at first light, he said. Pike's going to bleed lawyers all over the county floor, but the truck will sing. Your recordings will too. Knox straightened. If you need statements, I need you to sleep, Briggs said, pointing at the floor like the old days. And to keep a low heartbeat for a week. Your chapter can do quiet, Roar answered with a grin. We can do anything once. Briggs almost laughed, which for a sheriff after midnight is a miracle. He turned to go, then paused at Ava. You and the boy. There's a women's shelter with armed volunteers. I can... Ava shook her head gently. We're staying. Just for now, it's lighter here. Briggs looked at Knox. You always had a way of making sinners into neighbors. Knox shrugged a shoulder. Neighbors into family if we're lucky. The storm finally moved on, dragging its shadow under the mountains. The depot yawned, settled, and began the slow work of remembering itself as a home. Talon came down from the tower with a small, crumpled photograph. He handed it to Knox. Found this by the rail. Must have fallen from someone's pocket. Knox opened it. Ava younger, bright, a lake behind her. In the corner, a man's shoulder out of frame the way men who leave always are. He didn't comment. He just held it out. Ava took it, thumb on the corner. I wasn't always afraid, she said. Knox nodded. I know. She looked at him as if measuring an answer he hadn't given yet. What did Pike take from you? Knox stared out at the yard where the rain had left small, shining worlds in every puddle. Time I could have used to be better sooner. She folded the photo and slipped it into her pocket near her pulse. You started tonight. He didn't argue. From the far road, faint and mean, a single engine revved and vanished. Roar lifted his head. We still got shadows. Knox's jaw worked. Let them watch. Let them learn a new pattern. We don't bow. If this chapter hit you, tap like, share with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to Biker's Hype so these rides keep rolling. And don't forget to drop a comment. Where in the world are you watching from? They ate simple. Bread toasted black-edged beans, coffee so strong it could stand up and fight. Laughter arrived carefully like a stray dog testing a porch. It stayed. Noah woke fully, demolished 2 slices, and announced, "I think the Storm lost." Roar raised his mug. "Storm just changed teams." Diesel looked at Ava. "Tomorrow we see the clinic. We can line up a caseworker, school contacts." One step at a time, Ava breathed in, breathed out, and found the breath didn't catch. One step at a time. Knox stood again at the bay because some men are built to keep watch even when the fire is friendly. Fen came and stood with him and said nothing for a long time. Finally, "Fen, you know this isn't over." Knox, "Good. We owe the quiet and honest fight. If this story moved you, tell us in the comments where you're watching from. And subscribe to Biker's Hype for more true-hearted biker tales about brotherhood, mercy, and the kind of strength that doesn't need to shout. Like and share to help this ride reach someone else's night.